Yeah, super, super thankful. I feel like, sometimes you come to these conferences and it feels like you're getting talked at the whole time. And sometimes you wonder, well, that's great information, but how can I make that contextual to my business, right? It's great that it works for you in Spokane. How am I going to do it in Portland? How am I going to do it in Medford? How am I going to do it in Eugene? And so we wanted to just share some of the basic tools that we use and see if we could have an interactive conversation that helps everybody here run a better business.
And I will say, we want to share, but I don't know if I'm the expert when it comes to leadership, but this is what I want to talk about, what I've done in my leadership role to be successful. And if that helps you guys, that's great. I truly believe it will, but we don't want to tell you how we've done it. We would more or less, ask your questions, and then we can go from there. We can talk about a few things to get the ball rolling. Yeah. Kind of what we feel the role of leadership is, and then hopefully we get some questions to answer and dialogue back and forth with.
Yeah. And I know, so my journey is, I've been in the game now for about 15 years, which is not as long as some of you, and maybe it's longer than some of the new folks, but the position I'm in is I've got multiple teams across multiple states that I'm trying to lead and grow. And one of the hardest things, I'm sure you guys realize this about leadership, is that especially as you start to be leading other team members, even if it's just leading one team member, is it starts to become less about what you can do individually and more about how good of a teacher are you. How much can you get done through other people? And that's a shift from when you're an individual salesperson where you're supposed to be the rock star. If you know it and you learn it, you can go out and execute and get results. But as you start to get into leadership where you're growing something, you can't rely on how good you are. Because it's not about how good you are. It's about how can you teach other people. So the first thing that we want to talk about, take this however you want to go with it, is we want to talk about team meetings. And this is something that sounds so silly, but like I said, I've been in the industry for about 15 years now, and for a long time, we never had team meetings. We kind of did our thing. Everybody had this weird tribal knowledge of what their roles were. And it hasn't been until the last probably 4 years or so that team meetings have become a priority. And I feel like in a leadership role, this is something that has changed the way that I have run my teams. I know for Grant, this is like the lifeblood of Falco's. And very often I hear people say, well, yeah, you should do meetings. They should be good meetings. And we think, well, I don't have time to do meetings. I'm too busy. I'm too busy selling stuff. Why would I get involved with meetings? It's just bureaucracy. It's not going to move the needle. And that was one of the things I wanted to kind of open up for dialogue first is Grant, you are a master when it comes to team meetings. How has that changed your business and what does that look like for you?
Well, it's changed our business immensely, but it really kind of goes back to how it started and why. And so if you're not doing team meetings, honestly, and department meetings, whatever you want to call it, just start with one. Take the leaders or the 2 or 3 people in the group and just meet on a weekly basis, because the consistent communication is the first step. If you don't have consistent communication where you're out of the whirlwind and in front of each other and dialoguing, you won't get the progress. We say at the beginning of every meeting, what are we here to do? We're here to work on the problems we can't solve during the day. We just are, you're going to work and you're trying to get better by doing what you do every day, and you're not going to get better. Weekly meetings bring that to the forefront every week. And what our business has taken on is we started, my dad, he had to, when the economy went, my dad had a business full of employees he loved. And instead of having to let some of those people go, he went out and found another job.
He fired himself?
Yeah, he fired himself, basically, and he left us. And he left 4 people in charge, which does not work, and I wouldn't recommend 4 people in charge. But how we did it and how he survived by being away was we ran an every Tuesday admin meeting with 2 people that have been there 35 years and then me and my brother. We developed a heartbeat report, which was how many units sold, how many installed, dollar revenues, the weather, what we did on advertising, just one sheet, and he literally still writes it in, you guys. And it's been 9 years that we did that, and that changed our business. At that time, we were able to focus on the wildly important, so changing our pricing, the bigger structures. But now, we've taken the meetings to a whole nother level. We have department meetings on a weekly basis. Services every Tuesday morning. team meetings, which are the team leaders, are every other Wednesday. Thursday is install. Friday morning is sales and support staff. And we meet weekly. And it doesn't matter who's there, the meeting still goes on. There's an agenda, and it's because our memories and our intentions aren't always correct. These meetings aren't meetings that you're talking about everything and doing everything. They're structured. There's performance. I remember when I was tasked with having to be responsible for judging people. And as soon as you're a manager and you're looking at, we have 24 employees, how do you know if they're doing a good job if they're an installer? By how they look when they come back in? Or how they don't do a lot on the way out and they're joking half the time? That's how you make your judgment. Now, you have to be in front of them and you have to have performance indicators at that meeting to know truly how they're doing. That's all that's fair to them. Now, that's not easy and it takes time, but it starts with meetings.
I think this is something that I've really been learning. It comes from Andy Stanley. He talks about how vision leaks, so you always have to refill it. And so that as a leader, I think it's fair to say, as a leader in a company, are there times where other people in your company don't do the things that you want? Only a few of us. Everybody else, man, I gotta go work for your company. That's the truth, right? People, don't always do the things that you want. And one of the things that I've learned as a leader is that repeating your vision over and over and over to your team again and again and again is literally one of the most important things that you can do. And it sounds like a small thing, but I want to just open it up to you guys. If you have questions about how to run a meeting, why they're important, how to make time for it, this is something that has radically changed our business for the better, and we could never go back. That meetings have become the lifeblood of what we do. So, getting shoulder-to-shoulder time with other team members, where you're out of the showroom, you're out of the whirlwind, you can actually talk about, like Grant said, some of the bigger issues that are at hand. Have you guys had success with meetings, or have any questions about how that could be part of the lifeblood for what you do?
Tim, how are you facilitating with multi-stores and multi-states?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Matt asked, how am I doing that? So we have 6 stores in 2 states. And Matt asked how I'm doing that, and I would say it's very difficult. So my personal rhythm is in Oregon, because our stores are close, we get the whole team together. And the goal is that we try to do something every other week in Oregon. I'm in Washington every other week, and because the stores are further apart, we don't do that. We have meetings at 2 stores in Washington. So the team will meet at one store for an hour before we open, and then another store an hour before we open. And there's times every once in a while where we have to cancel a meeting, but having that consistency of roughly every other week is really, really important.
So no teleconferences or anything like that?
Well, that's a good. So we actually do a monthly video conference. I hate conference calls. Like literally, if you want to see me put a drill in my head and put me on a conference call, I think they're the biggest. I think they're the biggest waste of time. So we do a video. We do a video one, and not everybody can video. There are a couple people that are on it via phone instead of video. And our computer screen looks like the Brady Bunch, right? You've got a whole bunch of different faces on it. But at least having some kind of face-to-face interaction on a monthly basis is good. We use those calls to talk about, hey, what's the promo coming up this month? What did we learn about MSPS? How's the traffic in this store? How's the traffic in this store? And that's kind of given us a really good just pulse of how the industry is going.
Do you use Zoom for that?
We do. Yeah, we use Zoom. If you guys haven't heard of Zoom, it's awesome. It's for free. Yeah, as long as your call is under 40 minutes, you can get group video calls. It's really, really effective.
You can also do it from your phone and get and if you're doing it from your phone, you can get pictures.
Yeah, Zoom.
And I want to just say, I don't think it's about how you meet. I think that's what we struggle with. There's a million right ways to do it. The important part is to do it. We find all these excuses, and 1 week goes by, and we find other excuses of not being able to do anything. We're in the whirlwind of our business, you guys, and the only way to get out of it is by structure that meeting. So it doesn't matter how you do it. Webinars, whatever works for you guys. What works for us doesn't necessarily work for Tim and Tim's group. But honestly, don't put pressure on how you do it. The focus is just getting a consistent monthly, bi-weekly, or weekly meeting together and building upon that. Don't be afraid to change your agenda. Don't be afraid to change your mission. I've changed ours 5 times. Now, I've realized I have to minimize that, but don't be afraid to get better. Don't be afraid to improve your agenda by putting urgent and completes at the top. We always used to go over performance reports. How is everybody doing? Lead measures and all this stuff. Well, what I really wanted to know at the beginning of every meeting was, what outstanding installs do I have? What outstanding services do I have? What are the things killing my business on the backside that I'm just kind of like, I hope it's getting taken care of? They're urgent and complete. So what's at the top of all our install, service, and sales meetings? The current urgent and complete. What's the goal of that? To get that wrapped up by the next meeting, because we don't want that name on there. It's always at the forefront. And without those meetings and the ability to change, we wouldn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I think that, a lot of us, at least for me, coming into this industry, like, I don't have a pedigree. I'm not a fourth generation, family-owned business owner like Grant is. And I think that our industry is awesome because it kind of makes a home for misfits. I mean, I don't know if you guys are like me, but I think that that's fair to say. And so very often, the way that we run our companies is like, well, since we're entrepreneurs and we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, we just do it the way that we do it, and I've got a vision of where I'm going to go, and hopefully the team follows me. But at the end of the day, that's not a way to grow and scale your company beyond yourself, eventually to the point where you can sell it to someone, whether it's an installer or an outside investor or whoever it is when you want to retire. And having the consistency of team meetings, it's unbelievable, the focus and the clarity that gives you. Even if your meetings aren't that great, just getting the team together in a huddle to say, here's the game plan, here's what we're going after, let's go. I think about the football field. And like when you watch like football plays on TV, 90% of the time they're running a huddle before they play. And if they're running a no huddle offense, it's for a very short period of time, and then they're jumping right back into a huddle. And why are they doing that? Like, do the guys not know the playbook? No, they know the playbook. But they're coming together and say, we're about to get on the field. Here's what we're going to try to do. We'll see if it works. We'll execute it, and then we'll reconvene and get to talk about it, And if that's what has to be done to win a Super Bowl, I think it's fair to say that that's actually what needs to be done in our businesses too. And I've just found that there is a fear of companies having consistency with their meetings and touching base with their team members because they're afraid it'll waste their time, they're afraid they don't know what to say. And so we just want to kind of open that up and see like what kind of feedback you guys have, any questions about starting meeting and building that productivity for your team. Yeah, Danny.
With doing team meetings and stuff, you had said, repeat your vision over and over again, and then Grant, you in your previous seminar had talked about branding. How important are those things to kind of have, along the same mission statement, kind of nailed down, to kind of keep that going, forward as we move forward?
Well, I think it is really imperative for companies to have a mission statement for sure. And I think, one thing to take away from today, I think that if you guys can go back and come up with a one-sentence mission statement of this is what we're about, and then maybe 3 core values. And that sounds intimidating, but maybe the mission statement is just, we help families in our community stay warm and safe. And every meeting you start that, hey, what's the reason that we're here? We're here because we keep families in our community warm and safe. And every week, that gets repeated. Even if it's just a couple people in the meeting, it starts to change the way that you see your job and you see your role. So I think that having some kind of common vision like that is really, really good for meetings. But at the same time, as you're still working it out, maybe the mission statement changes, I think that that's totally okay. But I think that people look to you for a North Star of where are we going, and that's kind of what the role of the leader is to point out, here's the vision that we're going towards, and if that changes, I'll let you know as we go to it. But I think that you can't repeat the vision enough. That I think it totally unifies and galvanizes people. I
love the saying, a leader is a repeater. And honestly, a leader is a repeater over and over again. I think about my role as a father and how I have to repeat so many things to my kids. And do you think if I tell them one time, they're going to listen? And do you think if I tell my employees one time, they're going to listen? No. They've got so many other things going on. They've got fires to put out. You have to tell them 12 times. And then maybe they will remember.
And it doesn't mean they're stupid. It
no.
means that they've got 3,000 plus ads a day that are bombarding them for their attention. And if you don't have clarity to cut through it, you're going to get tuned out.
Yeah, our number one pillar is deliver wow. And it's just simple. It's just deliver wow. I read it in a book and I was like, yep, that's our number one pillar. So any decision made is to deliver wow to the customer. We all know how the sequence goes in our pillars, and it's always, so like if we have a part that goes down on an install, through our meetings we've structured that we deliver wow. If I have that in stock, that unit on a unit, I'm taking it off and taking it out there and getting that job done. Doesn't matter. Now that goes against my pillar number 2, which is go lean, because you don't want to be robbing in extra work, but the number 1 pillar is deliver wow. And that's the clarity in which your employees will thrive off of. They'll understand. And if you repeat it over and over again, it's not right away for sure. And I'll tell you this, I've been doing meetings for 9-10 years. I go into every meeting feeling like I'm not prepared, like I don't have enough stuff done, like my team is going to judge me, and I come out of every meeting feeling amazing. And like can't even believe how much stuff, like how did we even discuss that much stuff? And what would we have done if we wouldn't have discussed that stuff? And I tell you, it'll never change. Yes?
If I may add something, I have a friend who's a flight attendant, and she created this very special protocol where they check in with their team before every flight, and they run kind of a physical assessment, like, had you sleep well last night? Is there something going on? Because we're taking that plane out. You want to make sure every member of that team is performing, at peak performance. And if someone's had, a fight with their spouse or whatever, then everyone on the team sort of rallies around that person to make sure they don't make any extra mistakes. And so we brought that into our office. We call it the lightning round, where every Monday,
awesome.
You can't share your life experience, but we say, hey, tell us about your weekend in a sentence or less. And if, I helped my cousin move all weekend, we know that person then is not going to be super shiny on Monday. So but we get through, 6 or 7 people pretty fast, and it's changed the dynamic of our business. And it's not threatening, because you're just saying, went to a couple parties, watch Netflix.
But I would venture to say even improve the culture and each...
It's really fun, and then everybody has something also to talk about. They start building more relationships. Oh, you watch Game of Thrones too? Oh yeah. They just don't talk about it every day, because we're under constant hard products, people calling us every day.
Frickin'.
You're absolutely right about that.
Now, one thing I'll say, and obviously, love your feedback on this, but I would highly encourage having a structured sales meeting on a regular basis. So my recommendation would be at least every other week, and even if it's just 2 people, totally fine. It's just about starting something. But at least every other week, have some kind of sales meeting where you're talking about, what's the sales goal for the month. Maybe you divide that up by person, maybe that's for the store, maybe it's for the division, whether you have a service goal or an existing homes goal or a new construction goal, but some kind of a regular reoccurring sales meeting where you can speak openly and transparently about, here's the mark we're trying to get to, here's where we are right now. Hey Grant, what works for you this week? Oh, okay, you had a good week, maybe I can try some of that. Hey, that didn't go so well this week, what if you tried this and you worked on it next week? Having some kind of consistency with your sales meetings will start to galvanize and revolutionize your sales teams. And I would highly, highly recommend having some kind of a meeting like that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I was going to say, because then there's accountability on both parties, right? Your salespeople and you, the owner or the sales manager. And then you as a salesperson, perhaps you had a down month or whatever. There are going to be solutions that come out of that conversation of what could I have done differently, or what's happening that's causing lack of, and then you come out and move forward.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. You mentioned it before, role play, and that's something that you guys do a lot.
Yeah.
I think that to improve yourself, like basketball players, football players, they don't just go out there and play the Super Bowl or the playoffs.
So true. I mean, what does every professional athlete do to become a professional athlete? Yeah.
So why on earth do we think we need to use the salespeople that practicing?
We're not practicing on the customer. We're not learning anything. The customer knows nothing about what we do. And if we impress them, that's great. And we get the sale and we go on, but we didn't learn anything. When you're doing it, and I've watched Tim's team do it, my team has done it at a minimal level. We're still working on it. But what I've learned, what they have learned from it and sharpened, and Tim takes it to another level of videotaping. And honestly, this is videotaping right now, so we can learn on how we're doing things, because you just sometimes stand weird or something like that. So practicing is improving. We don't go to we don't just go shoot hoops and play pickup backyard basketball to get better. We actually work on certain things, and that's where the meetings really allow that to happen. Because you guys, when we're not in a meeting, you're doing a million different things, and we're just going to call it the whirlwind. You're swooped up in the whirlwind, putting out fires, never able to caught up. We all know what it is, and the only thing that pulls you out of that whirlwind is that meeting. So,
yeah, and I'm so glad that Melody brought it up. You know, for people that are in leadership roles, and I'm assuming if you're here at this event, you are in a leadership role. Even if you're a salesperson that reports to a supervisor, people are still looking to you as a leader in your company. And one of the biggest things that's helped us has been live practice. I would venture to say that 98% of our companies out there do not do live practice. They practice on their customers. And that's part of the reason that we're confusing customers out of buying fireplaces, because we're practicing on them. It'd be like a surgeon who didn't go to medical school and they're just practicing their operating skills on whoever walks in the door. Are they going to have a high survival rate? No. I mean, like maybe every once in a while by accident. And that's how we run our businesses all the time. And I think that practice is really hard. Jack was talking earlier about how at the Government Affairs Academy, they stick a camera in your face and they start asking, Edward knows about this, they start asking you tough questions. And you got to give a response to it. And it was so funny. Grant was in my group this year. And, at our company, our goal is that, like I said, we try to do some kind of a live practice every other week. We try to do that for about an hour or so. Some months we miss it, but most of the time we try to go out every other week. And so I'm very used to selling in front of other people. And I'm very used to looking like an idiot and crashing and burning in front of other people because I do it all the time, every other week when we're doing our sales stuff. There's times I still flame out, and it's okay. I'm with my peers. The guys back there, they care about me. They love to call out the critiques when I'm not following my own advice. But the reason I say that is that when we're at the Government Affairs Academy, we're in this room, and we got about probably 10 of us. And they put everybody in front of the camera, they grill them with these questions, and then when we get done, everybody gives you feedback. And as we're going through the room, people are like, they're crashing and burning left and right. And they're after they get the feedback, their eyes are open and they're like, I have never gotten feedback. I've never even thought about the way that I come across like this until just now. And so when it was my turn, I went up and I was pretty short, pretty concise. I wasn't, like floated or anything like that. And I got done, and some of the people were like, Tim, how did you do that? That was unbelievable. And literally, I'm like, guys, I do not have it figured out. But this is just a Thursday. We do this every other Thursday. I'm used to getting in front of a camera, having people talk to me, giving a response. And I don't get flustered with it because it's part of my regular routine. So it's not anything special that's unique to me. It's just the fact that because I've practiced over and over and over and over in a game time situation, it helps my chances a lot when the camera's on. And so, I would highly recommend some kind of a rhythm of practice with your teams. If you're a sales leader, be the first person to jump in and let your teams critique you. Take that feedback, learn where you need to learn, and that's going to give you credibility when you're trying to help coach your.
And in that situation, be okay to fail in front of your team. I mean, a leader has to show a humble side and be okay to fail with your team. So you don't have to be perfect in going in there and doing it. You're all doing it together, and that cultivates a culture where you're all in it together. So. Totally agree.
Yeah. So, hands up, honesty time. Does anybody in here do regular live practice with their teams? John, you're not allowed to have your hand up. Troy. So I'll tell you guys this, just being totally honest. If you don't practice now with your teams, if you do a year of practice, you can 2x their sales. I'm not joking a bit. You practice every other week for an hour for a year, you will 2x the sales of your team. If you've never practiced. If you have practiced, then you probably won't get quite as much of a return. But it's the same thing if all of a sudden a professional athlete starts to practice and lift weights and shoot.
And another way of doing it that we've taken on, I just want everybody to be aware. So practicing is hard because it's kind of on stage and other people are watching it, and I get that. It's hard for us to get over it. But there is, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I'm gonna jump in because I want to tell a funny story. So, do you guys all know Grant's dad?
Thank you, Tim.
God,
God, it was so good.
Do you guys all know Grant's dad?
Yes.
So, guys, he's a legend in this industry, right? I mean, he's run Falcos for forever. He's one of the best true sales guys that I've ever met. I mean, Louis is a sales guy, and So like right now, if we were gonna live practice, so let's say that I just randomly pulled one of you guys up here and said, okay, we're gonna sell a gas fireplace. I'm the customer, you sell me something. Would anybody here be nervous? Okay, so like we all kind of feel that a little bit. But what's so funny is we were working with Grant's dad on some stuff. And we said, well, okay, if we're gonna take on your product line, you gotta come teach us how to sell it. So you have to come into our sales meeting and you have to start selling to every single one of our team members as a customer so we can learn the right way to do it. Because obviously you know the product better than us. And I'll never forget the story from Grant's perspective. That his dad had never heard of a person demanding that out of a rep before.
He was freaking nervous.
He was a little nervous.
He was totally nervous. Now, I was going to say, now that I've remembered, I think that getting your staff to train your staff is huge. And what I mean by that is you can role play and teach each other and sell to each other. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, and maybe that's not the approach your department wants to take, say, okay, at the end of this meeting for 15 minutes, each person is to pick a different category and teach on it. Or you guys pick the categories. But if you make your staff be the trainers, so our team, service team will go out to Harmon and do some Harmon service. When they come back, that team is teaching the rest of the group the service that they learned. And when you're taking that information and you're forcing them to teach it, you're forcing them to think about it differently and retain it differently. So it's another way of practicing what we already know. All right.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for Grant, seeing those ridiculous barbecue numbers? I thought there's got to be some barbecue questions.
No.
No one wants to sell barbecues like that.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell us about how you got your influencers on board. Like, what did you do? Just go into
Great question. So you have to be on social media and you have to participate. So how I stumbled across, I'll give one example. His name is Colin Barker. He is on the north side of Spokane. He's a pastor at a church and just loves to cook barbecue in his backyard. And I was posting stuff, he was posting stuff. You'd see a comment every once in a while, and then all of a sudden he asked, are you Falco's from Spokane? And do you own Falco's in Spokane? And I said, yeah. And he said, man, you guys are doing awesome with barbecue stuff lately. And it was all I was doing, you guys, was seeing what I saw was awesome on Instagram and just doing the same thing. But Colin reached out to me. And I brought him in, and he's like, all I want in Spokane is a barbecue destination. You just don't have we don't have a barbecue destination where there's like people, everybody knows about it and talk about it, and it really spoke to me. Well, Colin was my first ambassador. And then it all happened organically through Instagram. All of a sudden I see that another guy is from Post Falls, Jason. He cooks at our barbecue fest every year with Colin. Ken Sanfranic, who lives just right down the road from me, but met through barbecue, KRS Barbecue. They all promote us. Scott, I can't even pronounce his name. It's like Valerian Squeal or something, barbecue. But he's constantly promoting us. And we just had this other event, and we have people that are coming to our Barbecue Fest event that we don't know of that have 10,000 followers that are promoting us. And it's because of these guys, and it's a chain link event. So it's by engaging with them. That's how you do it.
I was going to say, I was really impressed with that because I follow your stuff on Instagram and everything. So,
thank you.
Yeah, well, it's good. But it was neat because I seen those ambassadors actually post videos about your own event. It was like, oh my gosh, talk about a testimonial. That was incredible.
Yeah. So I have two really good brand ambassadors. One of them is Colin Barker, who is now over 30,000 followers out of Spokane, Washington. He's created his own Barker barbecue rub that we sell out of our store and we helped him with. And then we have another brand ambassador. His name's Chef Chad White. He was on Bravo Top Chef. He placed 5th or 6th a couple seasons ago. He's got a beard, big personality. He owns restaurants in San Diego and he's originally from Spokane. And so one of the videos you may have saw is he's doing a 300-mile kids bike race on Sunday after our barbecue fest, so he can't cook this year, but he's so evangelical about our company and wants to be a part of this thing so much that he literally stopped by for 5 minutes during barbecue fest. I took video of him for 15 seconds. He rapped about barbecue fest and getting down to barbecue fest, and we probably had over 2,000 views on that time. And then we asked Colin to do the same thing. So they're posting to all their followers to get out and go to Falco's. The other thing that it helps you with is brand recognition. Like, how do you buy rubs and spices? Can you try them all? No. Just buy what everybody likes. Go to Instagram and find it.
And that's how you found your charcoal, right, that you sell?
Charcoal, rubs. I mean, when we got into rubs and sauces, you guys, my dad thought I was crazy. I was literally spending, probably in about a 30-day period of time, I probably spent $3,000 on rubs and spices. No joke. And I didn't try one of them before I bought them. I didn't care. When I got them there, my whole staff wanted to open them up and try them. I'm like, no, I'm just wasting bottles. Like, people are coming in because that invisible sale out there is driving them to my store. Meat Church, Lane's Barbecue, Code 3 Spices, I can name them all. And they're all the most popular on Instagram and social media. And the thing is they see you. All of a sudden they are searching for you. So we sell Traeger. Traeger is a huge part of our business, and I understand Traeger is maybe not what everybody thinks should be the right product line for you. We've chosen it to be our product line. They have invested so much money into the marketing train. But before we were even big with Traeger, through Falco Barbecue, I was sent a prototype grill. Not because of my association with Falco's, it was because of my association on Instagram with over 200 followers, and they asked me to be a beta tester. I had to go through 6 tests. I have the Ironwoods, I don't know if you guys have just seen them come out. They're $1,200, they're wireless. I had one a year and a half ago. Traeger was seeking us and is looking for information from us because we are the ones that are dictating who, where they should go with their marketing. So yeah, it works both ways. Manufacturers find you, you find manufacturers.
Yeah, and we'll get to this in a second. Later on today, we're going to do a panel around a conversation about marketing that has to do with this company's story brand that we've been referencing today. And that's one thing that Grant's done a really good job of with his stuff on Instagram is that he is not the hero of the story. He has made his customers and the barbecue community the hero of the story. And we're going to get into this, that every customer is their own hero. And there is not room for 2 heroes in a story. They do not care about your business being the hero. Now, they don't wish you ill will, but if I'm looking for a fireplace, that's great that you're 4th generation family owned. I don't care. Can you solve my problem? If you can, sweet. And I'll support you all every step of the way. So that's one thing you've done a really good job of is that you have done a nice job talking about your business as it relates to solving the problem, not just saying, we're the best barbecue destination, we've been doing this for 30 years, we have this, that, and the other. You've talked about how, do you have a hard time cooking a reverse sear? Here's how you do it. Do you have a hard time figuring out which barbecue sauces are going to set you apart from your neighbors? Here's the ones that you need.
Do you know what cuts of meats you want? Like, we don't know meats and cuts and all this stuff. Just general knowledge what is your fear like of barbecuing? A man's fear isn't to barbecue. It's to actually go in and pick out what to barbecue. No joke. So we started educating them on that, and it has changed it on how they look at our barbecues. We gave them that information. They sought us as a barbecue destination because we were talking about all the cuts of meat, and we review it every month because truly it's difficult to know the cuts of meat.
Oh, yeah. I don't know the cuts of meat. Yeah. One thing I want to talk about too, that me and Grant, he's a good friend of mine, and so we bounce a lot of ideas and things off of each other. But one thing that Grant has been very helpful with for me is helping me think about metrics. And as a leader running a business, we have to have our eyes on the gauges on our dashboard. And there's a lot of businesses that they're driving with the windshield blacked out and electrical tape over all their gauges. I have a weekly podcast that comes out, and I have a guy that wrote me out of the east side of Canada. And he had some questions for me about basically how to set up comp structures that can motivate team members and how to do sales goals and growth and things like that. So I asked him a couple questions, and he's a young guy that's just taken over the business from his dad. And he's a business owner, and he said, this is the first year since I've come on board that we've measured our annual sales. Wow. First year. And I think that is more common than we think. And if you break it down to monthly sales, do we measure our monthly sales? Do we measure our sales by salesperson per month? Does our sales team have a goal per salesperson per month? Do they have a scoreboard where they can see how they're doing on their goal per salesperson per month? Grant's been very helpful for me in starting to get a handle on these metrics, because knowledge is power. And so, we can talk about metrics now if you want to, but I feel like there's certain metrics that are very valuable as a business owner just to be thinking about as you run your business. And, we don't have to share proprietary numbers or anything like that, but there's some basic things that I think we should all be keeping our eyes on and sharing with our sales teams and our purchasing teams to make sure that we're running the ship in the right way.
You can't hold anybody accountable if you don't have those in place.
You hit it on the head.
Accountability.
Business or an individual, or
Yeah.
something to measure.
Well, there's a ton of different metrics that we can discuss. You can discuss metrics that help your employees' production, or you can discuss metrics that help you understand advertising, and really it's up to you to choose. I think probably in conjunction with our meeting conversation, the right metrics to talk about are probably, a scoreboard or performance as far as, your departments. And so I'll just bring up an example of installation, okay? And I'll maybe talk about service a little bit, but it's not like you have to come up and reinvent the wheel, and there's a million right performance indicators. The wrong one is how they look, how they act, how they appear for the 30 minutes you see them. The right way is to have them understand how they're judged on their performance. And you have to figure out easy ways to do it. And it has to be manual. There's not going to be any just like, we just have this report populate out of your system. You have to come up with that system. And so for installers, it's so simple. Like, we have 2 performance indicators, and they are picture report. So they are expected to send pictures of the job and certain pictures every day, and they're expected to send it on that day, and they get graded on it. And then we review it, and we keep it at a 52-week total, so we know each week, and we also know at the end how they're doing. They're incentivized to be over 95%. Guess where we were? Okay, I'll go back. I asked them where they thought they were when we started this, and they thought probably right in the 80% of getting the pictures in. It's like 40 to start. It's like you can't find them anywhere. You give an inch, they take a yard. But if you take that away, all of a sudden they're at 90%, and they're disappointed about not being at 95%, and that is a win. Okay?
So you're saying if you measure it, things improve.
They improve. And it's a quality control. It's not a picture report. I call it that, but it's a quality control report. I want to see how they're doing. I want them to be proud about what they're doing. I reward them at the end of every month for the best picture taken. But I also want to have that information when the customer calls, and I want to pull it up and say, that's not how we left it. I would love to be able to do that, and I've assured myself of doing it. The second one is a paperwork score. So our support staff will go through the paperwork every time, and there's 6 categories they're fully aware of, and if there's anything missing, they get knocked down. And again, their score is to be 95%, and they are disappointed when they don't get it. They get a little tally sheet at every meeting saying what they missed that week, and they will go straight to support staff and contest it. That's amazing. Go ahead.
There's a contractor in the weatherization and energy efficiency business in the lower peninsula of Michigan that has 70% of the market. Because he trains his people, he measures everything. So they spend an hour a week training on different personalities that they deal with. And the other thing he measures is at the house, at the kitchen table, trying to get a credit card or a check. He knows what nights of the week work best for him, what hours of the weekend work best for him, and he reschedules if both decision makers aren't there. Even if he shows up and one can't, stuck in traffic, I'm rescheduling. Because he knows he won't get a check or a credit card if one of the decision makers isn't there.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
He measures so many other things too.
Will you see your quote on
Put that back to his people.
shooting at a target that's not there?
Oh yeah, it's like the Zig Ziglar quote: "If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time." And a lot of our businesses run that way. Absolutely. Yeah, you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. One of the metrics I talk about this a lot when I teach on marketing, and I think we talked about this maybe a couple of years ago at the OHPBA conference. But a metric that I would highly encourage people that have showrooms to do is to track your door swings. So I won't put anybody on the spot, but I was given this presentation up in Seattle, about a year ago, and I was talking about traditional advertising, and I was kind of bagging on TV and some of the traditional stuff. And there's a person that works for a large retailer up there that invests an extreme amount in TV, and he kind of took me to task a little bit and started saying, well, we spend a bunch, and it's proven that we get the metrics and everything. And so I kind of fired back, and I said, well, how do you know? Do you track your door swings? No. How do you know if it's working? If you don't track your door swings, you can't tell me the TV is working for you because you don't know if it's working. And so, tracking door swings is something that there's different ways to do it, but I would highly recommend, even if you're starting out simple, just with like a little checklist in your store, and you ask every customer, how was it that you heard about us? Check the box. Was it TV? Was it radio? Was it print? Was it social media? Was it a referral? Are they a repeat customer? And then as you talk to that customer, you're going to start to realize what kind of customer they are. Maybe they're looking for service. They're looking for a gas insert. They're looking for a fireplace, whatever it is. And you can start to document that stuff, and it starts to give you power and credibility. And it's helped me a ton in marketing conversations where someone comes in to sell me TV and they want tens of thousands of dollars for a TV campaign that's going to last 3 weeks. And I can look at it and say, what kind of a return should I expect on this investment? And they say, well, it doesn't work that way. And I say, well, then I'm not going to do it. We're doing this for a return on investment. We track our different types of marketing, and this is the average cost per customer that we see. And so if we can do a small bit of TV, but we're going to test it against this, and if your numbers don't prove out, then we're not going to do it. The reason I recommend that for you is that I was sharing with Grant earlier when he came in last night, but since I've come into my position at Fireside in Oregon, we've cut our marketing budget by 90%. It's literally almost non-existent. You would be dumbfounded if I told you what the number was. And we're at the point now where we need to start investing back into it because the economy is slowing a little bit, and there's been internal things that we've done to grow our productivity that are starting to tap themselves out to where we do need to start opening up that advertising arm again. But for the last 4 years, we have spent less in a year than most companies do in a month on advertising. And the reason is because we're tracking our door swings, and so we can figure out the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't work. And we don't have to figure it out, but having that knowledge and tracking those door swings is something that's so powerful. I would encourage you guys to do it. It'll make a huge difference in the way that you address your marketing.
It will help with a number of other things too. So tracking marketing is one thing. It holds your sales staff accountable to really understanding that customer and what they want and being accountable to that at the end of the week. And it also, it basically allows you to schedule staffing and understanding the flow of scheduling later on. And that's something that we don't really think about. Every year I'm wondering on week 45 if I should schedule 3 salespeople or 2 salespeople on the weekend. Well, tracking that information actually tells you, after that first year, kind of what to expect. And that is extraordinarily empowering. You're talking about go lean. If you know what traffic was like a year ago, you can make actually an educated decision on how you should staff it and who. You not only know how many people, like last Saturday, which was after Barbecue Fest, we had 16 good customers that came in. We know that information now. We know what they bought. We know what they were looking for. And so we can staff next year, that same year, similar to what that would. And then after 2 years, you have that much information, you're going to run a lean ship. You can start saying don't arrive till 10 or don't arrive till 11 because you know customers don't start, time periods that you can track, all that stuff. So it's not just the analysis of the advertising and how it's working.
Well, I guess like what Tim was talking about with who are the decision makers, what time of day is best to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Any questions about traffic and metrics and things like that?
How are you guys tracking that? Sometimes we put offers out on social media where it's, a particular QR code tied into, we can see how many impressions are tying into our scene or tying back to our site, but truly coming in to purchase. And our retail business is a little different, but do you use any kind of metrics on social that you directly tie in as a result of the sale? Besides a customer name, or
yeah, that's a really good question. So Matt was asking basically how you can prove out your numbers and tie in that the ads and the print and everything that you're running actually prove out in the store. So I'll give 2 suggestions. One of them would be I would put a different call to action on every piece of marketing or advertising that you run. So if you're going to have, say, a print ad with a coupon, use a different coupon number on every single piece of print paraphernalia that you do. So in this magazine, you've got your coupon number that is, magazine XYZ. On this one, you've got a different call to action. People have to bring in those print coupons so you can start to measure which ones worked, which ones didn't. With TV and with the web, if you're going to run a TV ad, my personal advice is I would not make the call to action your company's website. I would create a micro-site of, xyzcompany.com/fall promo or something like that. And I would make the call to action, maybe it's a discount of, X percentage off of these models, go to, and make the call to action that website. So they're not going into your normal company's directory where you can track how much do we get on that specific URL. Another one is I would highly advise capturing email addresses of your customers. So I would highly advise having some kind of a lead magnet on your webpage or on your social media.
To get the offer.
Exactly, yep. So pick what the lead magnet is. So that if you're going through social media, right, we always see those articles of 5 celebrities that looked good 10 years ago and now look terrible. We all click on it. You know what I'm talking about? So make something like that, but make it valuable. So do a video of 3 reasons a fireplace increases home value over 20 years, or 5 things that you need to know before your next remodel project. Give it a catchy title like that, and make it a good piece of content. I mean, people are going to have to think it's valuable enough. But say you're advertising on social media, pick one of those lead magnets. And when customers click on it, they should be taken to a landing page where they can enter their first name and their email address to get sent to them, and you can start tracking conversions right there of which one is performing the best.
When it comes to door swings, sometimes it's hard to capture that information, and really, this is what I'll tell you, there's no real easy way to do it. When the customer comes in, it has to be through your sales staff executing a certain amount of questions to get that information, and then be obligated through a weekly structure of some sort, meetings, to talk about that. We implemented Tim's process a little while ago, and it's a manual piece of paper, and it's phenomenal. The problem with my business is that we're one store, and we'll get 100 people in the store on a Saturday or 80 people in the store on a Saturday, and my team cannot manually track that. It's impossible. We just are unable in the fall. Spring and summer, no problem at all. But fall, not going to happen. So what we did, and this is, just track it. It's not going to be perfect. Don't beat yourself up about, oh, did I get this? Did I miss this? Oh, who cares? It's better than what you had. So track it. And I am totally willing to talk to anybody about this. We purchased a software program called Lobby Central. It's literally like a dental office program, a check-in process. Our staff greets the customer. Sales staff never greets them. Support staff always greets them. We've always made that a priority. We want the customer to feel welcome in there, and not that they're going to be sold right away. We point them in the right direction. We let them know someone will help them when they're ready. The only thing we changed is we ask for their name. We go back, we put it into the system, and we check them in. The sales staff checks them out, takes the tablet out there, and puts in the notes of their sale. I look at that all the time. I'm teaching off it. I'm learning from it. I'm knowing if advertising working. I can be off all day and know everybody that's been in there. My sales staff tell me it's not busy. I just wish I could track the phones the same way, but I can't. But you guys, systems like that don't have to be perfect. But you have nothing right now, and to improve upon that is to get something. So just get some type of tracking system, and you'll see it, you guys. And once you hit that 1 year mark of this information, your life will change. All of a sudden, all this information you've been collecting and wondering how it's relevant becomes super relevant that next year in planning marketing and planning staffing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Troy.
An example of metrics, several years ago I had a retailer that we were in a discussion about how to increase the number of door swings, and his automatic answer was, well, I need to advertise more, I need to reach out to more people. Rather than going to the expense, what we agreed upon was that he would track transactions on a daily basis. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He wasn't open on Sunday. What we found after looking at 6 months worth of data, that there was an abnormally high number of transactions, high dollars on Monday. Why were they coming in shopping on Monday? Well, he was open from 9 to 5:30. Most people work somewhere between 9 and 5:30, and they could not get to his store during the week. The only day they could shop at his store was Saturday. They'd make their decision when they came home, come in and put a deposit down or purchase something on Monday. What happened as a result, sore subject for some of you in the room, they open their doors on Sunday. Minimal staffing. But after a year of tracking the same metrics, 20% of his revenues, 20% came in on Sunday. He only lost 4% on Monday. So when you just look at the availability for those consumers to come in, we're a destination store. There's no way around it. But it was just amazing, just monitoring transactions, not necessarily door swings, but when people were actually separating with their cash.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely important to do that.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, we measure our own consumer behavior. When do we go shop for things? Saturday? Sunday afternoon?
At home in bed.
Yeah, at home in bed, there you go. Yeah, it's worth thinking about.
Night on the computer.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm going to talk about too is the idea of, as a leader, being able to set really clear expectations for teams. I think if we're honest, if we were to do an audit of all the people that are in our company, and we ask the question, do you understand exactly what is expected of you? You understand exactly what winning looks like and what losing looks like, and you have zero frustrations due to a lack of clarity. I think that most people would not be able to agree with that. I think that most people in our companies have some level of confusion about what's expected of them, or they're not crystal clear in what winning looks like and what losing looks like. And one of the things that has been a learning process for me is understanding how important it is to communicate expectations over and over and over again and be so painfully clear, like beyond what you would think you need to explain, almost like when you're talking to your Grant's got 2 little kids, you're talking to your 4-year-old about what the expectations are. This is what winning looks like. This is what losing looks like. Is there any ambiguity about that? That's something as a leader that's like critically important, and I think that's a big shift in our industry that needs to happen.
A few things to that. There needs, and I don't know how to say this in the right way. I don't know how great leadership works, but there has to be one message, one vision. It doesn't have to be everybody's 100% vision, but there cannot be a couple different visions, or that clear expectation is never going to be set. Does someone have a question? Or? And then the other thing is that meetings create a clear expectation. So I don't mean to keep going back to meetings, but man, when you're trying to set up a clear expectation, if you're not touching your employees and you're just saying hi and they run up emotion, they're not retaining or getting any of that. So setting up clear expectation comes down to those reports and those meetings and them understanding exactly what's expected from them. And this is what you'll get. You'll get inspired employees because for the first time, they're reaching goals. For the first time, they're actually doing something. Before, they're just coming to work selling stoves, selling barbecues. Having clear expectations creates a positive culture.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I would highly recommend too. I mean, everybody runs their businesses differently, but I couldn't beg and plead with you enough to set sales goals for your team members and to have public accountability for it. So, one of the things like my team back there can attest is that everybody on the team at all times knows their goal and everybody else's goal on the team, and they all know their progress towards it. That we have a weekly scoreboard that goes out every Tuesday, and it shows, hey, here's the metric of where we're going towards. Here are the different contributors, so we know, who's leading the ship and who's falling behind. And that has helped natural accountability to where we show some transparency with that, and that has actually gotten ridiculous buy-in to where, again, when we know what's expected of us and we know what winning looks like, we are that much more certain to go out and try to charge it down versus, burnout happens in a job when things are being demanded of you that you feel like, well, that's not what I'm supposed to do. I was never trained in this, and that's where you start to get the rub for burnout. But when you can be radically clear about where you're trying to go, it doesn't mean there's not frustrations in your job. And it doesn't mean you don't have to have tough conversations. I mean, if numbers aren't there, and you got to have a tough conversation about that, and it sucks.
And be prepared for that.
But
start tracking it, you might be surprised.
But it puts it in context to where you're not coming out of left field. You're talking as a group about, hey, this is where we've been, this is where we're trying to go. We have to turn this ship around, and that's much better than managing by emotion, where, well, this person, they're not doing good because they didn't have their shirt tucked in when they came in today, or, well, the economy's getting bad, so we're just going to lay off this person because I think they got a bad attitude. Now, I'm not saying you should have a bad attitude, because you shouldn't, but being super clear with those expectations really helps make difficult conversations something that's easier, because you've been super clear about where you're trying to go, and everyone's aligned on how to get there.